I am Father Jerry Melvin Dias, currently working in the pastoral area.
I'm Sister Julie Mathews, a Sister of Mercy, and I'm delighted to be here to be speaking with Father Jerry.
Good morning, Sister. So we have Sister Julie on the show this morning. First of all, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
First of all, maybe could you tell a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background, before you were sister,
Oh, there's not a whole lot to tell. I grew up in Georgetown all my life. I lived in Georgetown. I have 3 other siblings, 1 brother and 2 sisters. One lives in the United States, my brother, my sister in Canada. I have a sister who lives in Guyana. For about 5.5 years, when I finished my high school at St. Rose's, I worked at a bank as a teller in different areas of banking. I really liked that very much.
Okay, yes. So you are a banker.
Well, I wouldn't say I was a banker, but I worked in banking.
Okay.
Yes, I did. And it was a really good source of employment, and it really prepared me for this life, actually. Gave me a sense of discipline, a sense of commitment, a sense of work. I think anybody who worked at a bank in those days would be prepared for any life.
Well, that you were working in a bank, and how did you feel, or how did you prepare yourself to join the religious order? Could you tell a little bit about your religious life?
Well, as you say, working in the bank, I had never thought of religious life. It was just never even on the horizon in my mind. I just thought I will work, I will get married, I'll have children, have grandchildren, that sort of thing. But I've always been involved in church. From the time I was small, I taught catechism for 10 years. Right after I was confirmed at about 14, I began teaching catechism. I was in the choir for many, many years. But I never thought that I would be doing this. I think, however, it was gradual. I became kind of questioning, God, is this all my life is going to be about? Get up, go to work at bank, come home, teach catechism, sing in a choir, go home. Was that all? And in beginning to question, I guess people would say, I began to discern what God was calling me to. And I had the opportunity to go to Trinidad to liturgy school. And during that time in liturgy school, I just had an overwhelming experience of God's love for me and God's mercy and forgiveness. And I would say I fell in love with God. And even then, I didn't think of religious life. I just knew I loved God and I wanted to be of service. And little by little, I began to take time praying on my own. I didn't know much about prayer. And I thought, I want to give my whole life to God. But I didn't know where I wanted to do it. And I was at a youth group meeting, and a Sister of Mercy came to give a presentation, Sister Andre Dembowski. And during that presentation, I sat there and I'm looking at her and I'm saying, I think I would like to do this. I think, this is what I would want to do. And I made my decision then, and I went to the Sisters of Mercy and then started meeting with them. And 25 years this year, I've been part of the Mercy community, and I would say it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I really do like my life.
Well, on that note, congratulations
for
your 25 years.
Yes.
It's really
doesn't seem that long, but it's been 25 wonderful years, filled with some challenges, but on the whole, I would say it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note how God has been working in your life, because you see, you were working and you had plans for your life, but suddenly, there is sister comes along and tells you, and you hear the call of God, and it's very interesting to note, and 25 lovely years, isn't it?
It has been, yes.
And you have been involved in working in the orphanage, John Bosco Orphanage, and you've been running it so quite well and helping so many children who are in need of some love, isn't it? And you are doing it so well. Could you tell a little bit about your own work in John Bosco Orphanage?
Well, actually, I'm the director of the orphanage. We have an administrator, Ms. Grace Daniels, and she does the day-to-day administration of the orphanage. I would say I've been there 10 years. This is my 11th year, and it's very challenging work. The boys come with so many emotional problems because of abandonment, separation, abuse, the violence that they have received. And as you say, they really need to be loved and to be nurtured. And I think that's one of the greatest challenges, to provide the one-on-one attention that each child needs and not to lump everybody together. Each child is different and has a personality of his own. And to begin to nurture that and to allow that child to grow in freedom, to be the person God created that boy to be. And to give that child a sense of self-esteem, give them an education as well as food, clothing, and all the health care and all the other benefits. But to help that child to know that nothing that he could do would stop me from loving him. I think for me that is the greatest challenge, to forgive over and to be that sense of stability where they have not experienced that sense most of their lives.
Yeah, this reminds me of the two greatest commandment that Jesus gave. Love your God and love your neighbor. I think your neighbors are in the orphanage and you are doing it so well.
Well, I think, for the boys to experience through myself, the staff, the people in the community, the church community, that sense that they will never be forsaken, that God will not forsake them. They have been abandoned by their parents, a lot of them, not all of them, some of them, but God will never forsake them. I think they experience that in their own relationship with God, and hopefully we could provide that human experience.
It's lovely sometimes when I pass that way and little boys shouting at father. Then I pause there to just look at them and the amount of the joy they have on their face. I think it is because of your love that they are radiating that love, and I can see that on their faces.
It's incredible that children who've gone through so much and they really are joyful. I mean, they do have pain, and as I said, they have a lot of emotional problems, some of them, but there's a joy that they're fascinated with life and they enjoy being, as you say, you pass there and you recognize them and they recognize you and they're like, Father, and they're jumping around and just want your attention. Yes, it's incredible.
Yeah. Now, talking about your greater responsibility that you are entrusted with, that you are the provincial superior of Caribbean islands and Central America and South America. That's a vast land, isn't it? How many countries you are?
There are 8 countries,
yes.
2 in the Caribbean, Guyana and Belize, and 3 in South America, Peru, Argentina and Chile, and in Central America, Honduras, Guatemala and Panama. So it's vast areas,
exactly, yeah.
But it's been I think the formation of CASA, we call it CASA, 1C for Caribbean, CA for Central America, and SA for South America.
And CASA Spanish is
home. And it has really been a home because I think when we're together, we feel, although different languages, because it's English and Spanish, different cultures, different ethnicities, when we come together, we know that we're rooted in God and in mercy, in the charism of mercy. And there's a lot of life and energy and a sense of church, a sense of mission. Actually, when I was elected last year as president of the community, we came up with some areas that we would be wanting to look at, and one of the areas that we were really interested in, as Mercy is always throughout the years, we're always interested in women. And so we're very interested in women. The whole issue of human trafficking has caught our attention, and we have sisters working in that area right now in Georgetown and throughout our province. Non-violence was a big issue because of the violence in our world, in our society, in our families, even in ourselves, that we wanted to commit to really try to have a spirituality of non-violence and let that permeate everything that we do. So in our ministries here in Guyana, you just mentioned the orphanage, but we're also in Mercy Wings. We have Mercy Boys Home after the boys leave the orphanage, Mercy Hospital, as most people know, Mercy Hospital, and some Saturday program at a convent in Meadowbrook, among all some pastoral areas. So in everything that we do, we're hoping that somehow this whole sense of nonviolence will be part of it. That in our interpersonal relationships with each other in community, in the wider society, that we would somehow witness that it's possible not only to live a life of nonviolence and of peace, not only physical violence, but by our words and the way we put each other down and the way we speak to each other, that somehow we'll be able to permeate that sense of peace in our world.
It is pretty much important in our world today, where violence is really taking over, and in Guyana too, and in Brazil, for example, Catholic country, but the violence is still on the rise. And your focus, your congregation, your order, focusing on this particular area, I think that is really commendable, and develop maybe a theology of non-violence,
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're committed to, and I think it's because we live in this sort of violent society, it's almost impossible for us not to imbibe some of that ways of being and reacting, but I think we have to be able to transform some of that.
Okay. Now coming to our local here in Guyana, how do you promote vocations now? Whether young girls are interested, and how do you encourage them to join your order?
The whole question of vocations, I think it's a challenging area. I would say for us Mercies, we have done it on and off. Sometimes we are more focused on vocations promotion in a formal way, but I do believe that by our lives and how we witness, that is one way of vocations promotion, if you want to call it that way. Basically what we do as Sisters of Mercy would be invite young women, just in church or anybody that you see that you think might be called, but also in a formal way to meet with us, to have prayer, to have supper, spend a weekend, spend a night, just for them to get to know us, for us to get to know them. We've had some persons interested, and we started back meeting. We had a meeting in December and one in January, and we're going to have one in February.
It's interesting because that's one of my responsibilities as a Jesuit priest, to encourage the young boys, if they have a desire to serve as a priest or brother, to encourage them. And in the hinterland, I think in Guyana, I feel the boys are a bit shy, and they don't really express it. But when we really talk to them and sit with them, some of them, I still remember one of the boys did express to me that, he's thinking of joining priesthood or brotherhood. But of course, the peer pressure is really affecting them.
And it's not something that people hold real high up, so you get a lot of comments, and when you suggest that you might be thinking of it, so it's not something you want to say out loud that easily.
Yeah, true. What about the young people, boys and girls? Do they like any other factor that really influencing them or blocking them from joining the priesthood or sisterhood? Do you know any?
Well, I mean, I have talked to many young people, and they would give different reasons. Celibacy, it's a big one. So how could I live a celibate life? They would say to me. You want to have children, you want to have a family, so I would say that's a big one. I think also upward mobility. That is very much valued in our world, how much you could own, how much you could possess, how much money you could have, how much education you could have, so that you could move up in society, and so that becomes a challenge. Do I have to give up all this? Is it that I won't be able to live the life that I imagined that I would be living, that I worked so hard for, that my family paid for my education? I think that's another factor, and especially women now, could do a whole lot in terms that they are educated, and sometimes they're even more educated than the young men in our society, and so they see the whole world in front of them, and to choose religious life and sometimes feel as if it's a step backwards. I would say those are the two main areas that I would say that I've heard. But I think religious life, for people to choose it, I don't think it'll ever be in the numbers that it used to be in the 40s and 30s and 50s. But I think it comes from a religious, a church environment that also promotes that sort of life, and in the family and also in church. I think people have to see this as a possibility of something that I could really do, and it's not somebody else could be. Will do it. Everybody would like to have vocations, but somebody else would choose it. Not my child, but somebody else.
And every Sunday they have vocations prayer.
Yes, and so we pray, and but somebody else, maybe not my child or not me, but somebody else. And I would say for myself in choosing this, in the beginning it was hard for me to tell people, because it was just not something that any of my friends would have thought that I would do, and would have thought that they would do also. So it took a little courage to say it, but once I did, people were like, "Oh no, not you!" But eventually they were very supportive, and I think over the years people have really supported me. Although they didn't in the first instance acknowledge it, and I think young people would also have that experience. If they say it, people would embrace it. Maybe in the beginning they might joke a little bit, but I think if they see you're serious, they will embrace it and want to support you in this life.
Correct. Yeah. So young listeners, you heard Sister Julie speaking about vocations, and I am here. So it is not hard. So if anybody is interested, please let us know. Don't think it is hard. It is, we got to just make a move. Then we will help you, in this area of life. Coming back to Sister, already we spoke about, the religious life and the young people joining the religious orders. What do you think some of the challenges that a religious person faces? Religious person, maybe as you or any other persons in general.
I would say for me, the greatest challenge that I face is trying to live my life with integrity and witness to the gospel. There are other challenges in religious life of community, different personalities living together, developmental challenges that happen to each of us as we go through different stages in the whole human development. That is just part of life that you will experience in any life. But for me, I think once I've chosen this way of life, the radical call of the gospel, to try to live that each day with integrity of my word and my word matching my deed. I think the call of the gospel, it's a real challenging call to live the gospel in this context, in the context of corruption, of violence, of the gap between the rich and those that are poor, to try to witness the call of Jesus, not only to give direct service as I do in the orphanage or in other areas, but most of the things that result in the enslavement of people in terms of human trafficking, and the gap growing greater between the rich and the poor, and the violence in our society, those are the racism and the discrimination against women especially, those are really systemic. Those are in the systems. And the call of the gospel, I believe, is to do the service, yes, but also to try to change those systems and to work for social justice. And that, to me, is the greatest challenge. it's easy for me to work with a direct service and to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and all the works of mercy. But to challenge structures that continue to enslave the human person, I think that for me is the greatest challenge of religious life. I think it's a call of Jesus. I think it's a call of the Sisters of Mercy. I think our founders, Catherine Macaulay, tried to live that way and to challenge structures in Ireland. And I think it's our call today to challenge the structures in Guyana and in our world. And for me, that's the greatest challenge.
And that's how you witness the gospel, as you mentioned, isn't it?
Yes.
And you did mention about social justice, isn't it? In this world, which is there is widening gap between rich and the poor, and violence and corruption. The other, all the things go with that. And you have that desire. According to your charism of your founder, and that is commendable, and I wish you all the best in that area.
Well, pray for me.
Sure, I will. Yeah, sure.
That is needed, because sometimes the courage is not always there.
Yeah. You did mention about Orphanage and other. What are the other works that you are involved in Guyana?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have St. Joseph Mercy Hospital, and that hospital serves the people of Guyana, and at that hospital we also have some special programs that I could highlight today. We work with people who are living with AIDS. We have a program on that. We have a mobile health clinic that goes into several areas in the community to provide free health care, and we also try to help those who cannot afford, in some ways, health care, either preventative. They do education as well as primary health care when we go out into the community. Mercy Hospital has experienced the challenge of the fire and all that, but I think at this point we're back. We've really we dedicated our hospital in May, and we've seen that people are beginning to come out more to Mercy Hospital, and we are improving our services and offering more services at Mercy Hospital. We have Mercy Wings Vocational Center, which is a center in Sophia, and that is for teenagers who have dropped out of school, or I would say the educational system has failed them, and so they weren't able to finish high school, or many of them can't read and write. We try to give them a second chance, and we provide vocational skills as well as life skills for them, not only to learn a trade, but give them the sort of values and the skills that would help them to be productive in society. And I spent some time talking about John Bosco Orphanage. And then we have the Mercy Boys Home. When the boys leave the orphanage, they go to the boys' home from 16 years to 21 years, where they continue their education, work, get employment, and then move on to live on their own. And we have a lot of tutoring program. Our sisters have always been in education, and we have tutoring at the Meadowbrook Convent. The sisters tutor children maths and English during the week, but also on Saturday morning the children in the squatting area and around Meadowbrook also come for classes in maths and English. And the community there, the older sisters there, most of them in their 80s and almost 90, they give service to the young boys and girls that come there on Saturday mornings. Those, I would say, are our main works. We continue to go to Mahaika, people with Hansen's disease, and our sisters visit them each week, and also the Palms. They go every week to the Palms. So we're involved in a number of areas.
Yes, you are involved in so many areas here in Georgetown, but how do you manage? How many sisters you have, like?
We have 12 sisters, and how we manage, I think God gives us the grace and multiply our efforts. Really, because I cannot think that most of our community, almost half, would be over 80 years old. And we continue to be vibrant and give service. So I would say God gives us the grace and multiply our efforts.
That's fantastic, and it is commendable, really commendable. The other thing that I hear and I know, that you do things very quietly, and you do it so well. You don't make a big news about it, and do it very nicely. Any comments on that?
I have no comments, really. I mean, basically, God has gifted me, and I try to use those gifts in any way that I could, and to reach out in mercy, and hopefully to bring the face of God's compassionate heart of mercy to our world.
And now your work as a provincial superior involves a lot of traveling, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes. People always say, "Oh, you're here." Yes, I do travel a lot. As I said, we're in 8 countries, but we also belong to an institute, 6 provinces in the institute, and the headquarters in the United States. So sometimes I have meetings in the United States, or I have to visit each of the countries, and I'm part of a team, and each of us lives in a different country. So we meet by Skype on the phone, and we have our team meetings, and we use the technology, but sometimes we have to meet in person. So the traveling is, it's just part of the job. But I think hopefully that during my term that I'll be able with others to give leadership to the vision of the Sisters of Mercy. That's all I hope for, and the traveling is just part of it.
Okay. Don't get too tired,
No, I really do believe I need to take care of myself as well as do the work. So I have, I work hard, I have time for leisure and to read a book, and I also take some quiet time to rejuvenate so that I could continue my work. Yeah. So I try to have that balance. Sometimes I do it better than other times, but
yeah. Well, now talking about church in Guyana, in general, interior and in the coastland, what do you have any comments on the church in Guyana? Whether, for example, where are we at the moment in the church? Like now, for example, Pope Francis has come out with a beautiful exhortation, and I'm not sure whether everybody has an access to it, and I don't think everybody has access to it. But Pope Francis is really emphasizing that Christ should be the center of the church. So do you have any comments on that?
I think the church right now in Guyana, how would I describe it? I would say in some ways we're suffering from a little bit of apathy. I see men and women and children who are faith-filled, serious about God, serious about church, but I feel there's a sense of apathy. And maybe I'm a little nostalgic, maybe. I remember the days when our church was very vocal on social issues. People were out there, really. Church itself, we felt not the institutional church or going to mass, but you felt the people of God. Church is the people of God, where there was a vibrancy and people taking on leadership and people taking on roles and people wanting to serve God as well as serve the neighbor. They saw that connection. I think right now there is some amount of apathy, but the faith is there and the will is there. So I think with some amount of injection of energy and life, I think that we could find that flame again.
It's like having a domestic church, like families. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could probably, meet the people at the family level then, because today's world, coming to church is a slightly challenge for the people because don't have time, busy, and especially young people who are having a professional life. So it's difficult really to really come to the church, but like church says domestic church. Do you have anything to say on the family?
Well, I think the family is the first place where we really experience and come to know God and church. I think that's good, always good to encourage that and to build that. I think to coming to Mass, coming to church, that whole sense of the broader community is also important, where we celebrate, where our liturgy really speak to who we are, the incarnation of God. But I think church too is how we move into the neighborhood, the broader community, where the people of God, the universal. It's more than just coming to Mass on Sunday. It's how we carry church, Christ, as he said, the Pope, as the center, Pope Francis, the center of the church. It's not only in the building, but it's how it's in every area and aspect of our lives. I think that to me is really important. I think we could have the most wonderful liturgies, but if it doesn't carry out in our everyday life, in our workplace, in our family life, then what is it then? So I think that for me is the challenge. Pope Francis talks a lot about poverty. I mean, that is one thing that is very consistent. And a call for the poor church. And I think that for me is really important, and that integrates, or it really touches into the charism of mercy. Our charism of mercy and justice. And so, yes, I agree with you in terms of the family and doing it. We did it in many ways. We used to have BCs, and we went into groups in small areas. There are different ways to do it. The church is Mass and so on, but also in the wider context. The church is the people of God.
It's interesting to note when you said about the poor church. I think I don't know exactly the year, but the Medellin conference here in the Americas said about the poor church long back, many years ago, and I think it started here in the Americas, and that should really take root in the church today, I think, in Guyana particularly.
And in those days there were of course, a strong sense of liberation theology, and everybody, Oscar Romero, and the church was at that point where really worked for those who were poor on the side of those of unjust systems and injustices. I think that somehow some of that fire, we need to fan that flame. But I do believe that the people in our church, just as faithful as we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I entered, yes.
They have faith, but as you said, the same faith they have, and that is really admirable, isn't it? It's really encouraging.
Yes,
for me as a priest, that to see the people's faith and maybe learn from them, learn from the people, the simple faith they have, isn't it?
But I think also our catechetical programs, that too is another area where that is nurtured, that whole sense of church, of Christ as the center, of the poor church, that little children begin to be aware of that and to grow in that. So to provide that sort of environment, I think it's really key too.
Yes. Well, Sister, first of all, thank you very much for being here and sharing your thoughts and feelings and emotions. And please remember that we are praying for you and all the work that you are doing, and for all the Sisters of Mercy, that it's their work commendable, and we are thankful for that. And I'm sure God will give you His choicest blessings to you in your mission.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege to be here this morning and to share with you. I don't do it quite often, so thank you for giving me that opportunity to say some things that just deepest in my heart.